this world historic phenomenon, this ideological bedrock of imperialism, of this notion of the civilized and the uncivilized. That's what we're seeing here. And one of the ways that this has been most importantly, I feel, portrayed is in the way that Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, the president of Ukraine, has been portrayed. You see it everywhere. You see Zelensky is the hero. He's fighting with Ukraine. He's defending Ukraine from Russia. He's wearing military gear and going out on the front lines and fighting. The problem with this narrative is that it's not exactly true. It is actually not known what Zelensky is doing so much at the moment, because in terms of whether he's directly fighting, because a lot of the images that have been shared are fake. So a lot of them are fake in the sense that they do not correspond with the current conflict that is occurring between Russia and Ukraine. There is a viral image, and I'm going to share my screen again. There's a viral image of Zelensky in military uniform where it is said that he is fighting with his fellow countrymen and women against Russia and refuses to leave despite the United States offering to leave. But even Reuters did a fact check on the images, and they showed that, in fact, they do not correspond with the event, that these are not photos of him participating in the current conflict. So it says old photographs of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wearing military garb have been shared on social media, with users wrongly claiming that it shows the president fighting after Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, 2022. So they're miscaptioned, and they show them here. You have all these social media accounts that were sharing Ukraine's president on the front line. He's on the front line. So these images here and others, right? These images are several months old. They were taken on December 26, 2021, and show the president meeting with service members in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. That's out in the Donbass. That's one of the republics that has been recognized by Russia. So he plans to stay in Kiev. So that's basically what's happening. They say the verdict is it's miscaptioned. It is fake. So I just want to show you that really quick, because actually that's one of the more important narratives that we see right now, is that the Ukraine state, its military, is heroic, right? It is incredibly heroic what it's doing fighting against Russia. But we need to complicate this a bit. And I'm going to get into a few other things that I want to share. But the Ukraine state, the state of Ukraine, the current government, it is a coup government. Despite 2019 elections, that government retains the same character, right? It is basically shaped in the image of the coup regime. And we forget, right? We have a lot of deniers out there, a lot of people coming after me. I'm on several lists on Twitter now about being Putin's puppet and Putin's voice and all this nonsense. And it's all to deny the facts of the situation. And that is that while certainly there were more fascists, outright fascists in government, in parliament before 2019, before those elections gave a little bit more political credibility to the state than it really deserves, the damage had already been done, and neo-fascists actually make up a large section of Ukraine's security forces, its defense forces. And today there was a very interesting tweet that came out from Ukraine's National Guard, from its official page. And I want to show you that because it really does get to the heart of the matter. Okay, the heart of the matter, which is that Ukraine's state is actually filled with neo-Nazi forces. It's security forces, paramilitaries, and the official military work together quite closely, especially in the assault in eastern Ukraine against Donbass. That is historically documented. The UN has tallied 13,000 people dying in that conflict, and 80+% of those are people of eastern Ukraine, people of the Donbass region being murdered by people like this, the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion, which is a critical element of the Ukrainian National Guard, of Ukraine's National Guard. And so here they tweeted today, right? This is the official National Guard of Ukraine Twitter page. And they said Azov fighters of the National Guard greased the bullets with lard against the Kharkiv orcs. So that is the dehumanization right there of the Chechen defense forces, which have said that they will support Russia in this conflict. And they are a majority Muslim practicing Islam practicing. They're a majority Muslim Islam practicing people. And so they're calling them orcs and they're greasing their bullets with lard because of the Islamic practice of not eating pork. So there you have it. They're bragging about killing Muslims. This is the Azov Battalion. These are the Azov fighters doing this. And this is the Ukrainian National Guard, Ukraine's National Guard giving it cover. So for anyone who wants to deny that there is a neo-Nazi problem with Ukraine security forces, then all you have to do is look at the social media of Ukraine's National Guard and see that there is indeed a big problem, and that it is this problem which is at the heart of Russia's military operation, regardless of what you think of whether this was the correct move by Russia, regardless of whether you think it is inhumane or not, because I think that the evidence of that is still not clear. We do not have good reporting coming out about the casualties, who they are. And we have, in all likelihood, as people like Aaron Mate have suggested, and I think this is a good suggestion just based on what we know about propaganda, that if there were masses of civilians being targeted and killed in this military operation, we would have heard about them by now in a clear sense. We would see the actual atrocities. We wouldn't need fake images and propaganda, which we're going to get into actually right now, because one of the ways in which this propaganda has surfaced, right, is by using images. The corporate media and social media across the landscape has used images that say, oh, look at how devastating Russia's military operation is, while using images that don't even correspond to that, that don't have anything to do with it. And so I'm going to show you how this has occurred, right, in a great Twitter thread, actually by someone from USA Today, so a corporate media outlet. I mean, this is how ridiculous this has become, right? Where the misinformation is so rampant that even corporate media like USA Today is doing fact checking about what is being disseminated. So here we go. Daniel Funk, if that's how you say his name, a reporter at USA Today, is going through images here. So images of things that are being shared online in the media, and there are explosions that have been shared that have been attributed to a Russian attack on Ukraine that are actually a May 2021 airstrike in Gaza. So there's the image that's been disseminated across various media platforms. And here's another one. So there's a video that's been disseminated of Russian aircraft over Moscow during a flyover rehearsal ahead of a national holiday in 2020 that has been supposedly distributed across media platforms as a flyover in Ukraine in the current conflict. So there you have it again. Images being misattributed to Russia that actually have nothing to do with its current military operation. So here we go again. It says Ukrainian police dropping riot gear in Odessa, but that's 2014 and not recently. So again, this scaremongering that, oh my God, people need to get ready to fight on the streets against the Russians. Well, this happened in 2014. Odessa, I don't know if you remember the Odessa massacre, where there was a burning by the Euromaidan proxies, and they killed, I believe it was over 100 people, a lot of them labor folks, union folks, because they burned a national labor union building. They burned people alive. They trapped them in there. So that may be a reference to that, the 2014 incident that occurred there, the Odessa massacre. So earlier this week, thousands of social media users falsely claimed clips from the video game called Arma 3 showing war between Russia and Ukraine. So there you go. More of this misinformation, right? So more and more and more, right? A recent explosion in Ukraine, the clip was uh, published. Yeah. So anyway, oh, here we go. This photo does show Ukrainians praying, but it wasn't taken recently. The image has circulated online since 2019. So Ukrainians praying, right? Praying probably for their lives because Russians are coming to get them. This image is not true. It's not real. That did not happen publicly. So again, it's just over and over and over again. This photo does not show a Russian airplane shot down by Ukraine. It was taken in August 2015 during an air show celebrating Russia's National Flag Day. So again, more news coming out that a Russian airplane is being shot down, that Ukraine, right? Another part of this narrative is that Ukraine is doing so well against this offensive. And I'll comment on that in a second. But again, these images are fake, 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 fake. So I'm going to stop sharing that. It's just a little bit of a taste, right? I just give you a little bit of taste with the time I have because I do have to leave in about 30 minutes. But a little bit of a taste about what this propaganda is. It's everywhere. We cannot believe the images that we see, right? We cannot believe them. They are rooted in this propaganda war, right? Against Russia, to paint Russia's military operation as barbaric and savage, and to paint the Ukraine regime as completely and utterly uh, justifiable and defensible, a regime that deserves support from the entire gambit, the whole gambit of popular opinion. And it's worked, right? We see recent polls saying that there are now more than 70% of people that would support a NATO intervention, a direct NATO intervention into this war, into this, if we can call it a war between Ukraine and Russia, that NATO, so now that's gone up by several percentage points. There were less than 50% of people who supported that just a week ago before this intervention occurred. So there are so many examples of this. We cannot focus on them all. If you just come, please do like the stream. Please do hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications bell so you can know when I'm coming on again. And then also consider supporting my work at patreon.com/DannyHaiphong. It's the best way to support my writing and my ongoing video work, podcast work, etc. So there's more. Okay. So I'm going to get into one of the examples. So in the beginning of this military operation, there was a report on Snake Island, Ukraine, that there was a final standoff between Ukraine's military, its naval assets, people who are defending the island from Russia. It was the last standoff, and they screwed Russia, right? And it was claimed that they were all killed. Now, even the Guardian is saying, right, that's not the case. And even the Ministry of Defense has confirmed that that's not the case. So I'll just share what the Ministry of Defense said. So this was just an outright lie, and all the corporate media promoted it, right? That there was a last standoff and Russia massacred the people on Snake Island, yet the Ministry of Defense in Ukraine has said that preliminary information that border guards may be dead came before the defenders lost contact. As previously reported on February 24th, the aggressor fired from naval weapons and used combat aircraft on border guards and soldiers of the armed forces of the island of Zemilny. According to available information at the time, the infrastructure was destroyed and the island captured. Prior to that, the enemy repeatedly tried in vain to intimidate Ukrainian defenders with demands to surrender and received only one correct answer: no one will surrender. We understand that Russian propagandists, blah, 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 no, blah, blah. Border guards and fighters of the armed forces bravely defended themselves, especially in the face of the overwhelming means. Currently, after receiving information about their probable location, Together with the armed forces working to identify our soldiers, which is common open networks, we sincerely hope that the boys will return home as soon as possible and the information received at the time of the attack on the death will not be confirmed. Oh, God, I'm not even going to repeat the whole glory BS because that's actually a fascistic. The whole glory, that comes from the Ukrainian nationalist movement, so I ain't going to say that. So, in conclusion, it didn't happen. They're imprisoned. They were imprisoned, okay? They're not dead. And this actually speaks to the heart of something I want to talk about here that Aaron Mate has also talked about on Twitter and in his appearances, is that this Russian military operation, regardless of what you think about it, we have to objectively analyze what's going on. And objectively, the operation is very targeted. The corporate media continuously brags that Ukraine has somehow defended itself so righteously, right? So righteously, and despite these odds, and that, oh, Russia must have underestimated Ukraine's military. And there are people on the left who are saying this. Well, Russia might have miscalculated and thought it had military superiority. These are people who don't understand war. They don't understand the character of the war that is currently underway. Because it is a war, regardless of whether you think Russia is invading. I personally won't take a stance of invasion. I take the stance of this is actually a targeted operation. And because of the constant aggression that is also a violation of the UN Charter that has occurred toward Russia using Ukraine as the proxy, that blurs the lines politically. And so to say it's just an out-and-out invasion with no justification actually just erases the context for why this operation is occurring. But if we look at the operation and what has happened, people really need to understand that Russia's military is indeed far superior to Ukraine's. Russia could wipe Ukraine off of the map tomorrow. It could destroy Kiev's government tomorrow if it wanted to. But no one's listening to Russia's perspective. Russia has never said it wants to do that. They mock. People are mocking Russia for asking the Ukraine's military to put its arms down. But even that demand or request, whatever you want to call it, is not something that an invading aggressor really asks, right? Did the United States ask the government of Saddam Hussein, the Ba'ath government in Iraq, to put its arms down before it invaded? Did it ask the Libyan government under Gaddafi, the Jamahiriya? Did it ask that government to put its arms down before invading? No. And we can go to other dozens and dozens of examples, Somalia, etc. This is a very important point. Russia's military operation is actually very targeted, and it is targeted on military installations. And surely, even the most targeted war, especially in a country as small as Ukraine, especially with the ways in which countries like Ukraine are the militaries are heavily centered in urban areas, in contrast to the United States, where a lot of the military installations are actually hidden kind of in the bayou. Surely there might be casualties that aren't Ukraine military forces. That's possible. And so I'm not going to say that that's right. But as of right now, what we know is that Russia's military is, one, superior, two, could be much more lethal than it is, and three, has actually behaved itself in a way that is congruent with the statements coming out of the Russian foreign ministry, Russian government. And this is why the corporate media, the Western media, cannot come up with casualty numbers, cannot come up with specifics about what's going on, has to rely on Ukraine's military and its propaganda as the messaging, because it's quite obvious that this is actually a war between Russia's military and the coup state, the coup government. That's what this is about. It's not about the Ukrainian people. Russia is not trying to kill Ukrainian civilians, and we should applaud that. For as whatever you think of the invasion, that kind of coordination, we should say, okay, we might not agree with the intervention, but this is not like Iraq. This is not Putler, right? There's this weird. This is not like Germany invading the Soviet Union, for example, during World War II, Nazi Germany. This is not that. So it's propaganda to say otherwise.